All right, so today I'm going to try something a little bit different. I've done AI research um, for fasting, and I want to go through this here just a little bit. And I'm going to present two different things here. One's a video and one's a PowerPoint. And I'm going to start with the PowerPoint. We'll go through this here real quick. The metabolic blueprint, the physiology, therapeutics, and clinical risks of prolonged starvation, aka fasting, an evidence-based analysis of fuel partitioning, 96-hour optimizations, and the pathogenesis of, I'm not going into the ketoacidosis stuff. I've actually cut that part out because what they're talking about is not something that happens very often. And I will go over just a little bit of that with a PowerPoint. So during your fasting, the fasting spectrum, phase one, the glucagon depletion, the first 12 to 36 hours is when your body uses all basically the sugar that you have stored up. The body burns through 2,000 to 2,400 calories of stored hepatic and muscle glucagon. Now, what does that mean? Well, if you're running a carb-based diet like the standard American diet, it's going to take this long for your body to get through all the stored up glucagon, the glucose sugars that are in your system before you switch over to your ketones. If you're doing a low carb diet, this will take even less time. If you're doing a zero carb diet where you're primarily eating ruminant meats and stuff, this will happen a lot faster. And if you're already in a state of ketosis when you start your fast, you get to skip that whole part and go straight into what your body wants to do, and that's to heal. The second phase of this here is the system override, the 72 to 96 hours, where you get into a deep ketosis, peak therapeutic window for cellular repair and stem cell activation. And that helps your body to heal in so many different ways. It is amazing what happens when your body hits that spot. And the video presentation that's going to be after this is where it talks a little bit more about that. And then phase three is the fuel stabilization. That's after 96 hours up to 21 days. Your resting metabolic rate stabilizes. Basal energy is supplied almost entirely from fat oxidation and minimal continuous aminogenic oxidation. Basically, you're burning your fat for fuel. And that's what your body actually prefers to do. You don't need to take exogenous carbohydrates because your body makes the glucose that it needs. This just shows the fuel system override, going from an insulin concentration, dropping a glucagon secretion spikes, your cellular optimization and your fuel pathway, your mTOR deactivation, your MPK activation, autophagy initiated while you're running this here. And, on the bottom on the right-hand side, you see where the ketone bodies, the beta hydroxybutyrate, starts to be produced and stuff. It's where your fuel comes from now. You tracking the shift, the glucose ketone index. If you use a tracking system such as a Keto Mojo, the cool thing about that app is it gives you that information. So as your glucose goes down and your ketones up, it calculates your GKI. And once you get into a good state of autophagy, when your ketones get above 1 and they get to anywhere between 1 and 3, your body is doing fantastic for autophagy and for cellular repair. I just finished a 120-hour fast, and my ketones at the highest were at 5.6, which is amazing. My glucose ketone index was down to a 0.6, which is spectacular. I was running on ketones. My body was doing so much better. If you read this bottom part here, you can see that just 22 hours fasting drives the blood sugar down to a baseline that limits elevating ketones. This is where your body starts doing the cellular repair, where it starts doing the autophagy and it starts eating the bad cells in your body. And it makes a huge difference in how one feels and what goes on and when people are fasting. So, all right. And the last slide, the system optimization, the 96-hour peak, where your brain, for the brain, you have improved mental clarity, your mood is elevated. It's amazing how you feel when you're in this state. And the potential protection against neurodegenerative diseases is really high. For your heart, you have a decrease in the LDL cholesterol, which I'm not really concerned that much about. It's the triglycerides I'd really worry about. But you have the elevated HDL cholesterol and reduced and resting blood pressure. This is why I started the carnivore diet, was for my blood pressure. And one of the things that fasting does, even a short fast will help. But this 96-hour mark really makes a difference in how your body works afterwards. Your gut microbiome, there's a whole lot of stuff that goes on inside of your gut when you're doing this. Your gut actually gets to rest so that you aren't so inflamed, and your body just does so much. And then your cellular system, stem cell regeneration, and immune system regulation. You can reset your immune system while doing fast, and it is amazing. And then the drop in the IGF-1, which is linked to anti-aging and reduce oxidative stress. So that helps your body in so many different ways. And now that's the end of the slideshow that I have. Now there was more to this, and they were talking about ketoacidosis and stuff. If you're going to be fasting and you're not a diabetic and you're not a type 1 diabetic, or you're not taking in an SGLT1 diabetic medication or a weight loss drug, yeah, you still need to pay attention. And I would absolutely recommend tracking your sugars, because you don't want to get out of balance like that. I would recommend starting with shorter fasts and getting used to how your body fasts. I don't give medical advice. I'm just giving my own experience, but making sure that you're staying safe is highly important. Track your blood sugars and track your ketones. Know how your body's feeling. So, and now I want to show the second part. This is actually a AI generated video overview of the information that I had it looking up. This is actually pretty cool. Check this out.
Fasting promises profound biological repair, but for most, the first 24 hours are defined by metabolic stalling. If you eat a high-carb diet, your body expects a steady supply of sugar. When you stop eating, your system quickly depletes the stored glucose in your liver and muscles. Without an alternative fuel system ready to take over, your metabolism effectively crashes. As that glucose line bottoms out, you experience the physical fallout, intense hunger pangs, dizziness, and the heavy fatigue known as the keto flu. This experience...
Okay, I just want to interrupt right there. That they did say is if you are on a carb-heavy start. Continue listening to this here, because it changes if you are a animal-based diet. And it does touch on that just a little bit on this here, but not much. You have a much better transition when you are an animal-based and you're already using ketones and your body's already using fat for the energy.
Experience is a metabolic emergency caused by a sugar-dependent engine trying to run on an empty tank. A fat-adapted animal-based baseline changes the metabolic landscape of the fast from the very first hour. By eating only animal proteins and fats, your liver is already producing ketone bodies for energy. You enter the fast with your glycogen stores already managed and your system primed to burn fat. Fossil evidence shows that for 300,000 years, our ancestors relied heavily on meat-based nutrition, which kept their bodies in a near constant state of fat adaptation.
So did you get that? Did you understand? We have people that are out there. Well, there's no long-term studies on a ketogenic style diet. They just talked about the 300,000 years that's what man did, and fossils show it, and that's how they survived. So it's out there. They just don't want to admit it.
Starting a fast from this state allows you to bypass the transition phase, protecting your muscle mass and moving directly into deep cellular repair. At hour 0, while a carb-fueled body would be sounding alarm bells, the zero-carb body remains steady. Insulin levels stay low, and the transition into a fasted state is barely noticeable. This stability is driven by physiological insulin resistance, a metabolic shift where the body becomes highly efficient at prioritizing energy. In this state, your body spares that glucose exclusively for the brain and other essential tissues. Your muscles ignore the sugar and continue to draw energy from your abundant fat stores. Because
That's another point that I wanted to break out too. A lot of people think that when you're fasting, that you're burning your muscles for energy. If you go back and listen to what they're just saying there, that's not what happens. It's pulling out the glucogen, the sugars out of your muscles, the liquid. It's not eating your muscles. You have to pay attention to what they're saying because it makes a big difference. And so many people don't know the truth on how this stuff works. That's why I do some of these videos, is to pull this information out and to put it out there. I just want to point some of the stuff out today. Thanks.
As your muscles are fueled by fat rather than fluctuating blood sugar, you avoid the energy spikes and crashes that usually define the first day of fasting. By the 24-hour mark, your energy is stable because your body is running on the high-quality fuel it was already prepared to use. Between 24 and 72 hours, the body locks into deep ketosis. Blood ketone levels typically reach the optimal fat loss zone, between 1.0 and 3.0 millimoles per liter, where fat oxidation is at its most efficient. This phase intensifies autophagy, a biological cleanup process. Without incoming nutrients, your cells begin dismantling and recycling damaged organelles and misfolded proteins. As the brain transitions entirely to ketone fuel, researchers have observed a significant elevation in mood scores and a state of intense mental focus. By hour 72, the body has transitioned into an aggressive cellular scavenger, cleaning and repairing itself at a microscopic level. Between hours 72 and 96, the body reaches specific biological markers that shorter fasts rarely activate. A major hormonal shift occurs as insulin-like growth factor, or IGF-1, drops. This decrease reduces oxidative stress and triggers long-term anti-aging pathways. In the gut, the lack of digestive work allows for the proliferation of Lactospiraceae, a bacteria that produces butyrate, a compound essential for managing inflammation and healing the intestinal wall. This unique window triggers intestinal stem cell regeneration, a process that helps to replace aging tissue with new, resilient infrastructure. Reaching the 96-hour mark demonstrates that the body is capable of more than just surviving scarcity. It can actively rebuild its own foundational cells. Completing this 96-hour descent results in a systemic reset. Because your system is fat-adapted, your lean muscle mass remains protected by your body's fat reserves throughout the process. Hominid fossils suggest that periods of scarcity served as an evolutionary maintenance cycle rather than a state of starvation. Humans evolved to navigate a feast and famine circuit, eating nutrient-dense animal foods followed by periods of metabolic rest. Modern constant eating breaks this ancient cycle. Thriving in a 96-hour fast depends on how you fuel your body before the countdown begins. By establishing a fat-adapted, zero-carb baseline, you align with your ancestral biology and unlock the body's most effective state of repair. Always consult with a healthcare provider before beginning any extended fast. Extended fast.
All right. So what do you take out of that? The very end of it touched on something extremely important. How you fuel your fast to start with really makes a huge difference in how your fast will go to begin with. Starting out your fast, the last meal that you eat before you start a fast make it a high fat animal based meal. It'll help to get your body into ketosis. It'll help you get into moving uh, fat stores and using your fat for energy instead of any carbohydrate. It's a huge difference. And if you've watched any of my videos where I've talked about fasting, I do recommend that before you fast, you eat the high fat animal based diet prior to that so that you can get into ketosis and you can get into the fasting zone so much better. Let me know what you think of this video. Let me know what you thought of the slides and the AI in the comments. I'd like to hear from you. Uh, just let me know. I don't I don't do this very often with this is the first time I've actually done it when I've presented these here and I've talked with them too. So I'm very curious of what you think about this style of video. So leave me a comment. Let me know. Thank you.